to bring some sanity to what is a very unsafe condition. As others have noted, tourists walking the streets of Mendocino, down Lansing Street, they're drawn west on Albion Street by some very attractive storefronts and a boardwalk that ends abruptly. And you see it every day. From that point, they are forced into lanes of traffic, which not only delays and impedes traffic, but I believe creates a serious safety issue. I think that the applicant has a plan, and he might care to continue to pursue it, but it would seem headstrong in the face of what is an obvious alternative plan that with their talent and their skill at development, that they could create a business with a non-Albion Street fronting entrance like many other businesses on Albion Street with non-Albion Street facing businesses that could be very successful and certainly an enhancement to their business. That's the sum of my comments. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Thank you, sir. Next speaker, Wendy Roberts, followed by Barbara Reed, please.
I'm Wendy Roberts. I've walked up and down Albion Street about 6 times in the last week, and that's quite an accomplishment because this is one very long block, and it is impossible to walk more than a few yards down that block without being forced to walk on the street side of cars. People park leaning against the fence. They park leaning against businesses. Some businesses put, sandwich boards out in front to block it so that the cars don't park against their front doors. So to single out this particular project on the basis of it encroaches is, I'm sorry, but it's a little bit of a stretch. In fact, because of the way the long-established planter is, this would be probably the most protected entrance on that street. It would not change parking. I don't see how you would lose 1/10 of a parking place, and it would create a brick walkway between. So, these arguments have everything to do with a little arm wrestle between the appellant and the MHRB and the owner of the property, and between DOT and the MHRB, and I would just urge you to set those things aside, because that isn't what you're here to think about today. I think what we're here to think about is the apple shed. Now, you could put 2 of them, at least, in the space you're sitting in. It might seem really inconsequential, but as Marty has described for you, this is an exquisite little building. It was probably a garden structure in the McCallum's time. It was certainly there by 1898. It has a beautifully domed ceiling. It has some wonderful detail on the outside. And we wouldn't have that. Even today, a different owner than the current owner and your applicant today would have planted some nasturtiums and morning glories and let that sink back into picturesque glory. It would not be sitting straight and level on a proper foundation. It would not have been restored for adaptive reuse, which is exactly what the National Trust urges for buildings like this, so that they are useful, practical, and can continue to exist. Preservation doesn't happen if you force somebody out of using their building and they can't keep it. That isn't preservation. It's a wonderful building. Mendocino is not, and over my dead body will it ever become Disneyland. But this little building is not going to change the safety or the use of that street. And using the back entrance, I just want to make 2 points about that. The first is, I think it was Lee Edmonds who commented that the French doors, they're very pretty little French doors on that back side. They are historic, they're out of the main house, and they would never stand up to commercial use. I've had doors like that. They're fragile wood, old glass. They're not going to stand up as a commercial door. You're going to lose them if you try to make that the entrance. The other reason that nobody likes to mention, because it is controversial, go up the brick steps, you are right in the front window of one of the very elegant suites of that hotel. Okay, economics, not part of preservation, except it's where the dollars come from. and having people walking right past the window of that luxury suite would definitely diminish the attractiveness and the usability of the suite. So I just wanted to put that out there because I don't object to an economic reality that says buildings have to earn their way. I just want to make sure they're preserved. So just a few different off-the-wall thoughts.
Thank you. Last speaker card I have is Barbara Reed.
Mine is going to be real short. I'm Barbara Reed. I've lived in Mendocino for about 35 years. This building is really a cute little building, and the inside, the ceiling, it's really needs to be used. And I'm here to support the owners and their application and request that you deny the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Okay, any additional speakers wishing to speak to this item? Okay, I'll close public input and bring it back to the appellants and the applicants for rebuttal and closing remarks of 5 minutes each. Let's go to the appellant first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Applicant wants to use it as a hair cutting entrance, no problem. If he can get water out there, you know, it's a small little building. I have no problem with the use of it. I want to straighten out something, though. It's not like it's been sitting dormant for 40 or 50 years. It was in use up until a very few years ago as an office. It was adaptively reused in the 1970s by Sue Norris when she owned the McCallum House. With regard to the statement that my plan is incorrect, I'm sorry. I'm only as good as the material I'm given, and this is what the Department of Planning and Building in Fort Bragg gave me 4 days ago. But it doesn't change my argument. My argument still remains the same. The concrete foundation is 22.5 inches high. The bottom of the door frame is 28 inches high, and the plan still indicates the door. The landing is going to go up to the bottom of to the floor, to the door, and that's 34 inches high. And I don't see how you get around the requirement that this landing is going to require a handrail by county code. And I don't think you can waive that for historic purposes. And if I were an insurance carrier, I wouldn't waive it. But if I was a seated board of supervisor, I sure wouldn't waive it. I wouldn't put my county in that kind of danger. Regarding the flower box and the already existing encroachments, this flower box is owned by the applicant. Wasn't installed by him, was installed